Berry Gordy called it the worst record he'd ever heard in his life, then watched it become black music's greatest moment. The worst record I've ever heard in my life. That is what Berry Gordy said. And Berry Gordy had heard a lot of records. He had built an empire on knowing what would sell. He had shaped the careers of Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, The Temptations. His ear was legendary. His instinct was law. And he was wrong. About that record, and about others. And it turns out, he was not alone. This is a list of 10 moments in R&B history when the industry looked at greatness and told it no. 10 times the gatekeepers misread what was in front of them. 10 names who gave the music everything and were told by labels or executives or the industry itself, not yet, not this, not you. We are going to put those names back where they belong. Number 10, Aretha Franklin. Before I tell you what Columbia Records did with Aretha Franklin for 6 years, let me tell you who she was when she walked in their door. She was 18 years old. She had been singing in church since she could form words. Her father was Reverend C.L. Franklin, one of the most celebrated gospel preachers in America. She had recorded gospel music professionally at 14. The piano, the voice, the conviction, all of it was already formed when she arrived at Columbia Records in 1961. John Hammond signed her, and Hammond had a legendary ear. He had discovered Billie Holiday. He would go on to sign Bob Dylan. He looked at Aretha Franklin and decided she was a jazz singer. For 6 years, Columbia issued albums that tried to contain her. Supper Club material, jazz standards, orchestrated pop arrangements designed for a different kind of artist. Her voice was present in every recording. You cannot hide that voice, but nothing around it was honest. 9 albums in 6 years, not one of them climbed above number 69 on the Billboard album chart. When her contract with Columbia expired in November of 1966, she owed the label $80,000 because record sales had not met expectations. And I need you to hold that for a moment. $80,000 in debt. After 6 years of her life, given to a company that did not know what it had. Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Records looked at that situation and said, I want her. He took her to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to a studio called Fame in January of 1967. He sat her down at the piano and told her, in his own words, be yourself. The first session produced, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. The second session produced a cover of an Otis Redding song she completely reimagined, Respect, #1 pop, #1 R&B. By 1968, 1 year after that first Atlantic session, Aretha Franklin was, in the words of the industry press at the time, the most successful singer in the nation. Columbia had her for 6 years and never figured out what she was. Atlantic understood it before the first session was over. If this name was in your house growing up, you already understand what I'm saying. What Columbia lost in November of 1966 walked directly into the next room and became the Queen of Soul. Number 9, Sam Cooke. Let me tell you who Sam Cooke was before I tell you what RCA Records did with his most important work.
It's been a long.
By 1964, Sam Cooke was one of the most commercially successful black artists in America. 30 top 40 hits between 1957 and 1964. He owned his publishing company, his management company, his production company. He understood what he was worth. He was determined to protect it. And in the fall of 1963, something happened that changed what he needed to say. He and his band were turned away from a whites-only Holiday Inn in Shreveport, Louisiana. They were arrested for disturbing the peace. The New York Times headline the next morning read, "Negro band leader held in Shreveport." He went home and wrote, "A change is gonna come. You know this song. It has been part of the world for more than 60 years. But knowing the song and knowing what it cost, those are two different kinds of knowing." Let me give you the second one. He recorded it on January 30th, 1964 at RCA Studios in Hollywood. When his protege Bobby Womack heard it for the first time, he told Sam it sounded like death. Sam said, "Man, that's kind of how it sounds like to me. That's why I'm never going to play it in public." He performed it once on The Tonight Show in February 1964, and then never again in his lifetime. RCA released the song on an album in early 1964, but it was not promoted as a single. When the single was finally prepared for release in December of that year, the label cut a verse. The verse with the political content. They deemed it too controversial for white radio. It was released as the B-side to a dance record called Shake, a B-side for one of the most important songs in the history of American music. On December 11th, 1964, 11 days before that single was released, Sam Cooke was shot and killed at a motel in Los Angeles. He was 33 years old. He never heard the world receive that song as a civil rights anthem. He never heard it called a monument. He never heard it ranked at number 12 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. The industry gave it a B-side release because they were afraid of what it said. History gave it the recognition it deserved. Sam Cooke was not here to receive either of those verdicts. That is the truth of what happened, and it deserves to be said clearly. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, The Temptations/War. In 1969, the songwriting team of Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong wrote a protest song, an anti-war statement so direct and unambiguous that its opening line left no room for interpretation. They brought it to the Temptations. The Temptations recorded it. The recording appeared on their 1970 album Psychedelic Shack, and within weeks, fans, primarily college students involved in the anti-war movement, were writing letters to Motown Records in the thousands, begging the label to release War as a single. Berry Gordy would not do it.
To walk past Motown, and you saw a nice-looking young lady.
The Temptations were one of Motown's crown jewels. They had spent years building a crossover audience. Black listeners, white listeners, both charts, sold-out concerts in every major American city. Gordy had invested heavily in that image. He was not going to risk it on a song that declared the Vietnam War good for absolutely nothing.
Had to have a very cool walk. They thought they were cool.
One Motown executive at the time stated it plainly: "We can't put it out on the Temptations because it's political dynamite. If it goes the wrong way, their career is gone." And I will say clearly what most people won't.
Remember 1965? Huh? You do?
Berry Gordy was not protecting art. He was not protecting the Temptations. He was protecting revenue. He was protecting a commercial image. And in making that calculation, he decided that the sensibilities of conservative fans mattered more than the tens of thousands of people who recognized something urgent and true in that record.
You see, in 1965 in Detroit, Michigan,
Norman Whitfield took the song to Edwin Starr, a Motown artist with less commercial precedent to protect and everything to gain. Starr volunteered to re-record it. He did so in May of 1970. The single was released in June.
yes, goodness, plenty of food on.
In August and September of 1970, War sat at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 consecutive weeks. It became one of the most iconic protest songs in the history of popular music. Inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Temptations' original recording stayed in a vault.
Gasoline real cheap in 1965.
The song that thousands of people recognized as the truth before the label did went on and proved the truth on its own without the label's blessing. Number 7, Florence Ballard. This name deserves to be spoken. Florence Ballard. She was a girl from Detroit's Brewster housing projects who in 1959 gathered her friends around her and started a vocal group. She brought Mary Wilson. She brought a girl from the neighborhood named Diane Ross, not yet Diana, and she chose what they would call themselves. She chose the name Supremes. Not just a founding member, the founder, the architect, the one who said, "This is who we are." In the early years of that group, before the hits came, Florence Ballard was considered the strongest vocalist. Marvin Gaye said it. Mary Wilson wrote about it. The engineers at Motown's Hitsville studio, where precision was everything, once asked her to stand 17 feet from the microphone because at close range, the full power of her voice overwhelmed the equipment. You know these songs. Stop. In the Name of Love. You Can't Hurry Love. I Hear a Symphony. But knowing the songs and knowing what they cost, those are two different kinds of knowing. By 1963, Berry Gordy had made Diana Ross the group's lead vocalist. He had quietly entered into a romantic relationship with Ross that year, a relationship documented in Gordy's own autobiography and known throughout Motown's inner circle. By 1967, he renamed the group Diana Ross and the Supremes, and on July 1st, 1967, the day after Florence Ballard's 24th birthday, Gordy told her she was out. For 6 years of her life, for 10 #1 singles, for being the person who named the group and built it from the ground up, Motown gave her a one-time payment of $139,804. As part of the settlement, she was prohibited from mentioning having been in the Supremes or associated with Motown Records in any future professional capacity. She was erased from her own story. She attempted a solo career on ABC Records. The label shelved her album. Her marriage dissolved. Her home went into foreclosure. In 1974, Florence Ballard applied for welfare benefits. The newspapers ran the story. Some of you just got quiet. That's the right response. She was beginning a comeback. Genuinely, she was working again. She was performing when she died. February 22nd, 1976. Coronary thrombosis. She was 32 years old. Florence Ballard was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. Some names make it into history despite what the industry did to them. Florence Ballard deserved to make it while she was still here to receive it. Number 6, Jackie Wilson. Let me be precise about this one, because the specific facts are enough. They do not require embellishment. Jackie Wilson, born June 9, 1934, in Highland Park, Michigan. Nicknamed Mr. Excitement. And that was not a marketing phrase. It was the only honest description of what this man did on a stage. Elvis Presley cited Jackie Wilson's performance style as a formative influence on his own. James Brown spoke about him with a reverence he gave almost no other artist. Michael Jackson, who dedicated his professional life to understanding what it meant to be a performer, pointed to Jackie Wilson as one of his primary sources. By 1957, Wilson was a solo artist on Brunswick Records. His manager was a man named Nat Tarnopol. Tarnopol would later become president of Brunswick Records, which meant the man who managed Jackie Wilson's career also controlled the label that released his music. Tarnopol held Wilson's power of attorney. He had complete control over Wilson's finances. And while Jackie Wilson recorded more than 50 chart singles, while he filled venues across the country for nearly 2 decades, by the time he reached his 40s, he had almost nothing to show for it financially. In 1975, Tarnopol and 18 other Brunswick executives were indicted on federal charges of mail fraud, tax evasion, and bribery. Among the specific charges in the indictment, that Tarnopol owed Jackie Wilson at least $1 million in unpaid royalties, $1 million that Wilson never received. On September 29, 1975, that same year, Jackie Wilson was on stage at a Dick Clark revue at the Latin Casino in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He was singing Lonely Teardrops. He was in the middle of the line, "My heart is crying," when he suffered a massive heart attack and fell. The audience applauded. They thought it was part of the act. He was rushed to a hospital. Medical personnel worked 30 minutes to stabilize his vitals. The lack of oxygen to his brain during that time left him in a coma from which he never fully recovered. He lay in a nursing home for nearly 9 years. He died on January 21st, 1984. He was 49 years old. He was buried in an unmarked grave at West Lawn Cemetery near Detroit. He died $300,000 in debt. I know, I felt the same way when I found this. At the 1984 Grammy Awards, months after Wilson's death, Michael Jackson accepted the Album of the Year Grammy for Thriller and dedicated it to Jackie Wilson. He said, "In the entertainment business, there are leaders and there are followers. Jackie Wilson was a wonderful entertainer." In 1987, Fans raised enough money through a fundraiser to purchase a proper mausoleum. That same year, Jackie Wilson was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, inducted 3 years after he died, given a proper grave 2 years after that. The man who taught a generation of performers what it meant to command a stage was buried without a headstone. Number 5, Little Willie John. There is a song you know. You may not be able to name it immediately, but if I played it for you, you would recognize it in 2 notes. Fever. The finger snaps, the bass, the slow, smoldering restraint that changes the temperature of a room when it plays. Peggy Lee recorded Fever in 1958, and it became her signature song, the record by which most of the world knows her name. It received 3 Grammy nominations at the very first Grammy ceremony in 1959, including Record of the Year. Little Willie John recorded Fever in 1956. 2 years earlier, he was 18 years old when he cut it at King Records in Cincinnati, Ohio. According to the label's producer, Henry Glover, Willie John did not even want to record the song. Glover persisted, and what came out of that session reached number 1 on the R&B chart. It remained on that chart for 23 weeks. It sold over 1 million copies and was certified gold. By documented accounts, his version outsold Peggy Lee's version by 2 to 1. Cashbox named it the best R&B record of 1956. And if this name is new to you, that is not your fault. But it does not have to stay that way. James Brown, who had opened shows for Little Willie John in his early career, later recorded a full tribute album to him and spoke about him with a reverence reserved for almost no one else. Stevie Wonder, who was so shaped by Willie John's influence that he later hired John's 2 sons as his own backing singers, presented the posthumous Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 1996 and called him one of his greatest idols. B.B. King said a day did not pass that he didn't play a Little Willie John song. This name deserves to be in your memory after today. And here is what the industry gave him in return. By the mid-1960s, Willie John's recording career had stalled. He was convicted of manslaughter. He began serving his sentence at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla in July of 1966. He died in that prison on May 26, 1968. The circumstances remain disputed. His attorney and others close to him believe something more deliberate happened inside those walls. He was 30 years old. He would have been eligible for parole 2 months later. The recording of Fever that launched every version of that song that came after it, the original from which Peggy Lee drew her interpretation, was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999, 43 years after it was recorded. The music survived. The name, for most of the world, did not. Number 4, Tina Turner. Let me be precise about what the industry believed about this woman in the years before 1984. She left Ike Turner in 1976. She left with nothing, literally, 1 mobile credit card. A decade of joint career and its commercial output had left her with debt from canceled concert dates, legal proceedings, financial structures that had enriched everyone around her while leaving her with almost no foundation. She spent the late 1970s recording solo albums that failed commercially. She spent the early 1980s performing in hotel ballrooms and cabaret lounges, doing what she could to rebuild from wherever she was standing. The industry's verdict by 1982, Nostalgia Act, past her prime. At an age some in the music business considered beyond what a female artist could reasonably expect from the pop market. In 1983, a Capitol Records executive tried to drop her from the label's roster entirely. The language he used to describe that decision, preserved in audio that appeared in the 2021 documentary Tina, was racist, misogynist, and ugly in a way I am not going to repeat here. An A&R man named John Carter literally dropped to his knees in the meeting and refused to leave the room until the executive reversed the decision. And whether the industry dismissed her because of her age, or her gender, or her skin, I think you already know the answer. What's Love Got to Do With It was released in May of 1984. On September 1st, 1984, it reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. She was 44 years old, the oldest female solo artist to top that chart at the time. She won 3 Grammy Awards that cycle: Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. Private Dancer sold 10 million copies worldwide. She did not finish at 44, but that moment, #1, at that age, after everything the industry said about her, after a Capitol executive tried to remove her from the roster with a slur, that was the verdict that mattered. History is not confused about it, even if the industry was. Number 3, Marvin Gaye / I Heard It Through the Grapevine. In 1966, a songwriter named Barrett Strong sat at a $40 piano, 10 working keys, and hammered out a chord change. He took it to Norman Whitfield. They wrote, I Heard It Through the Grapevine. The first artists to record it were Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Berry Gordy vetoed its release as a single. Too bluesy, he said. They recorded it again, this time with Marvin Gaye, in the spring of 1967. Gordy reviewed the sessions, and Gordy said no. He chose a different Gaye single instead. Whitfield was convinced he had a record. He restructured the arrangement, faster, more gospel-influenced, aimed at what was working on radio, and recorded a third version with Gladys Knight and the Pips. Gordy, reluctantly, agreed to release Gladys Knight's version on September 28, 1967. What happened next is not subtle. Gladys Knight and the Pips's I Heard It Through the Grapevine reached #1 on the R&B chart and stayed there for 6 weeks. It reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, held from the top only by the Monkees' Daydream Believer. It became the biggest-selling Motown single in the label's history at that point. Whitfield still wanted Marvin Gaye's version released. He went back to Gordy. Gordy's response, as recalled by Barrett Strong directly, "Get out of my face. Mention that record again and you're fired." Marvin's version appeared on an album in August of 1968. Radio DJs found it. They played it repeatedly off the album. Listener demand was undeniable. Gordy had no choice. He released it as a single in October 1968. It went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 weeks. #1 on the R&B chart, it became the biggest selling single in Motown history. The record Gordy said was too late to release became the definitive version of one of the most recorded songs in the history of popular music. And I need you to hold this. Berry Gordy was wrong about this man before. He would be wrong about him again, in a way that cost the world considerably more and cost Marvin Gaye considerably more. There is a pattern here. The pattern has a name, and we will arrive at it. #2, Gladys Knight and the Pips. They did not arrive without a track record. Gladys Knight had been performing professionally since the age of 4. She had won the Ted Mack Amateur Hour nationally at 7 years old. They came to Motown having already made music that mattered. And at Motown, they made more of it. I Heard It Through the Grapevine, the story you just heard, was their record first. Before Marvin's version redefined what that song could be, it was Gladys Knight and the Pips who proved it was worth releasing. They turned a shelved song into Motown's biggest selling single, and then Motown released Marvin's version, and the song most of the world now associates with another artist had originally been made a hit by this group. That is the pattern of their years at Motown. Consistently excellent output, consistently insufficient promotional support. The label's primary attention and resources were fixed elsewhere, on Diana Ross, on the acts Gordy had decided were the primary commercial priorities. Gladys Knight and the Pips delivered. They recorded, they performed, and they received a fraction of the institutional support their output earned. By 1973, they had had enough. They left Motown and signed with Buddha Records. Their first major single for the new label was Midnight Train to Georgia. It went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, #1 on the R&B chart. At the 1974 Grammy Awards, Gladys Knight and the Pips won Best R&B Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. The defining record of their career, the song that cemented their legacy and demonstrated their full range as recording artists, came from the label that replaced Motown, on their own terms. Some of you grew up with this name in your house. If you did, you already understand what was done to them, and what it cost Motown to consistently undervalue what they had. #1, Marvin Gaye / What's Going On. Let me tell you who Marvin Gaye was by 1970, before I tell you what Berry Gordy said about what he brought him. Marvin Gaye had given Motown some of its most successful commercial moments. He had worked within the system. He had recorded what the label asked. He had been, for years, the compliant artist, deferring to Gordy's taste and commercial instincts, even when it cost him artistically. He had just lost his duet partner Tammy Terrell to brain cancer in March of 1970. She was 24 years old. His brother Frankie had come home from 3 years in Vietnam with stories that Marvin could not put down. Stories of what was being asked of young people sent to fight a war whose justification was deteriorating in real time. He needed to say something true. And in 1970, a Four Tops member named Obie Benson brought him a song, an idea that had come to Benson after he witnessed police beating protesters in San Francisco. Marvin took the idea, added words, produced the track himself using musicians he trusted, among them the legendary bassist James Jamerson, recording in a single session from a prone position on the studio floor. He brought the recording to Berry Gordy. Gordy was on vacation in the Bahamas. Marvin called him. He told Gordy what he had made. Gordy's response was immediate. "Marvin, don't be ridiculous. That's taking things too far." When Gordy heard the finished recording, he said it was the worst record he had ever heard in his life. He said it was too long, too formless, too political. He said it would damage Marvin Gaye's career. He said it would damage Motown's brand. He refused to release it. And Motown's quality control department, the internal body that reviewed all releases, agreed with him. The only voice inside that building who defended the record, who said he thought it was extraordinary, was Stevie Wonder. Marvin Gaye's response was to stop working. He told Gordy, "Put it out, or I will never record another note for this label." The stalemate broke when a Motown executive named Harry Balk, who had received an acetate copy by accident and become convinced it was a masterpiece, distributed 100,000 singles to record stores across the country without Berry Gordy's knowledge. What's Going On entered the world on January 17, 1971. Within 1 week, it had sold over 100,000 copies. It climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, held from the top only by The Temptations' Just My Imagination. It spent 5 weeks at number 1 on the R&B chart. It became the fastest-selling single in Motown's history. It forced Gordy to commission a full album and grant Marvin Gaye creative control. The album was finished by the end of March 1971. Rolling Stone placed it at number 4 on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. The Guardian and NME each ranked the album it anchors at number 1, the single greatest album in the history of recorded music. The BBC called it a masterpiece. It was added to the Library of Congress National Recording Registry and the Grammy Hall of Fame. And Berry Gordy, the man who called it the worst record he had ever heard in his life, has since stated for the record that What's Going On is probably the greatest piece of work that Motown has ever put out. Probably